It was an ordinary afternoon, and the sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the quiet neighborhood. The woman ran a small convenience store, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names and the smell of fresh coffee mixed with the scent of gasoline from the pumps outside. She had been working long hours that week, stocking shelves, cleaning counters, and helping customers with a smile that never seemed to fade, even when she was tired. Her store was more than just a business, it was a part of the community. People came not just for the snacks and drinks, but also for the friendly face behind the counter and the small talks that made them feel seen. That afternoon, she was helping a regular customer when the distant roar of a motorcycle caught her attention. It was loud, deep, and unmistakably commanding. Most of the neighborhood had gotten used to quiet days, and the sudden growl of the engine made heads turn. A large man dressed in worn leather approached the gas pumps. His presence was striking, tattoos peeking out from under his sleeves and a confident way of moving that told everyone around that he was not someone to be taken lightly. Even though he looked intimidating, there was a certain calm in the way he handled himself. He wasn't shouting or waving aggressively. He was just there, focused on filling his bike with gas. The woman noticed right away that something seemed off. The man reached into his pockets, checking for cash, and it became clear that he didn't have enough. He hesitated, looking around as if trying to figure out what to do next. There was a quiet tension in the air, the kind that makes people stop in their tracks. Some of the nearby customers shifted nervously, unsure if they should step back. The woman, however, felt a wave of understanding. She had seen this look before, the mix of pride and embarrassment when someone needed help but didn't want to ask for it. It wasn't about fear, it was about dignity. Without overthinking it, she stepped out from behind the counter. Her boots made soft sounds against the concrete as she walked toward the pump. The man looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "It's okay," she said with a gentle smile. "Don't worry about it. I've got this." She swiped her card at the pump and the machine beeped, accepting payment. The man froze for a moment, clearly not used to this kind of generosity, especially from someone he had never met. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice a little rough but polite. She nodded, shrugging as if it were the simplest thing in the world. "We all have rough days. Don't worry about it." He looked at her for a long moment. There was a mixture of gratitude and surprise in his eyes. In his world, toughness and independence were valued above all else. Admitting that he needed help, even in something as small as paying for gas, went against everything he had been taught. Yet here she was, a stranger, offering assistance without a second thought. It was unexpected. "Thank you," he muttered finally, his voice softer than before. It wasn't a casual thanks, it was sincere. The woman smiled again and gave him a small nod. "Take care," she said, stepping back toward her store. As he started his bike and rode away, the roar of the engine fading into the distance, she returned to her day. Life at the store continued as normal. Customers came and went, bills were paid, and shelves were restocked. But there was a quiet feeling in the air, a sense that something unusual had just happened. She didn't know it yet, but her small act of kindness had already begun to make waves. As the afternoon passed, she went about her work with her usual energy. She chatted with a young man buying snacks for his little sister, helped an elderly woman find the right cleaning supplies, and even shared a quick laugh with a teenager who came in looking for ice cream. Each interaction was ordinary on its own, but together they formed the heartbeat of her day. Yet even in these small moments, she couldn't shake the memory of the motorcycle man. There was something different about him, something that felt like more than just a chance encounter. Meanwhile, the man had pulled into a quiet corner down the road. He removed his helmet and ran a hand over his face, thinking back to what had just happened. He wasn't used to people being kind without expecting something in return. In his world, actions were measured and trust was earned, not given freely. But the woman's gesture had shaken something inside him. He felt an unfamiliar warmth, a feeling that maybe not everyone judged people by their appearance or reputation. He started telling one of his closest friends about it, describing the woman, her smile, and the way she had stepped in without hesitation. His friend laughed at first, not quite believing the story, but there was sincerity in his tone that couldn't be ignored. As the sun began to set, the woman closed the store, turning off lights and counting the day's earnings. She locked the doors and stepped outside, feeling the cool evening air brush against her face. The streets were calm now. The chaos of the afternoon reduced to soft whispers of wind and distant sounds of traffic. She paused for a moment, looking at the sky as colors of orange and purple melted together. It had been a long day, but a good one. Helping people, even in small ways, always left her with a sense of satisfaction. Little did she know the small decision she made at the gas pump would echo far beyond that quiet afternoon. That night, she cooked a simple dinner, thinking about the day. She didn't dwell on the motorcycle man. She didn't feel the need to. Life in the neighborhood had its rhythms, and she had learned long ago that not every moment needed to carry a lasting story. She washed the dishes, wiped the counters, and settled into a quiet evening. Outside, the streets were empty, but somewhere down the road, the motorcycle man was talking to his friends. He described her kindness again, emphasizing how unusual it was for someone to act without judgment or expectation. In the world he lived in, stories like these didn't happen often, and when they did, they spread quickly. By the time she went to bed, the neighborhood was silent, and the first stars of the evening were beginning to appear. She didn't know it yet, but her simple act of generosity had set in motion a chain of events that would soon bring the unexpected right to her doorstep. It was a quiet night full of possibility, and while she slept, the world beyond her small store was already stirring with anticipation. The next morning began quietly, with sunlight spilling gently across the streets. The woman woke up early as usual, her body moving on routine. She opened her small store, unlocked the door, and started preparing for the day. She wiped the counters, arranged snacks on the shelves, and brewed fresh coffee. Regular customers trickled in, greeting her with familiar smiles and small conversations about the weather, work, or their children. Life felt ordinary, predictable, and comfortable. At least that's how it seemed. Meanwhile, the man on the motorcycle was already riding through the city, thinking about the day before. The simple act of kindness she had shown him was still fresh in his mind. In his world, respect and loyalty were everything. A stranger helping someone without expecting anything in return was almost unheard of. He recounted the story to his friends, emphasizing how polite, strong, and kind she had been. Word traveled fast among the local biker group. In their culture, small gestures could hold immense meaning, and his friends were curious to hear more. Some laughed, some shook their heads in disbelief, but most listened with genuine interest. By late morning, the woman noticed something unusual. While tending the store, she began to see motorcycles parked along the street. A few at first, then more. Their engines hummed quietly, and the riders lingered outside, chatting in low tones. Customers entering the store commented nervously on the motorcycles, and she felt a small flicker of unease. There was nothing threatening in their presence yet, but something about the growing number of bikers made her pause. She tried to focus on her work, reminding herself that she had no reason to worry. After all, nothing had happened yesterday except a simple act of kindness. At the same time, inside the biker world, conversations about her were growing. The man had told a few more friends who had told their friends, and soon the story spread throughout the chapter. They talked about the rarity of such a gesture, how few people showed genuine kindness without expecting anything back. It became more than a simple story. It became a point of pride for them, a story about respect and honor. Some bikers mentioned that they wanted to thank her in person. Others debated how best to approach the situation. They wanted her to feel appreciated, not scared. They wanted to show gratitude without creating fear. Back at the store, the woman's day continued with a mix of normalcy and quiet anticipation. She helped a young man choose a birthday gift for his sister, rang up groceries for an older couple, and even had a small conversation with a teenage girl about her school projects. Each interaction reminded her why she loved running the store. She loved the human connections, the small exchanges that brightened someone's day. But the motorcycles outside became harder to ignore. There were now at least a dozen bikes parked along the curb, their riders standing in small groups, talking and laughing. Some stared toward the store, not in menace, but with curiosity. Her heart began to race slightly. She wasn't sure what was happening. She had never dealt with anything like this before. She watched from behind the counter as the bikers seemed to confer quietly, gesturing toward the store. A few glanced in her direction and then looked away, while others stayed focused on the conversation among themselves. She wondered if she should step outside to ask if they needed something or wait for them to approach her. She took a deep breath and reminded herself. She had helped one of them yesterday and she had done nothing wrong. Still, the sheer size of the group was intimidating. Inside the biker group, the decision had been made. The man she had helped stepped forward and spoke to the others. He explained that she had shown them a rare form of respect and kindness. He told them she was not someone to be judged by appearance or neighborhood gossip, but someone who genuinely cared about people. The leader of the chapter nodded and agreed that they should show their appreciation. They decided to visit her in a way that was meaningful but not threatening. They wanted her to feel honored, not scared. Back at the store, the first biker approached the counter carrying a small bag. He walked up to her, removing his helmet, and spoke in a calm, respectful tone. "Are you the woman who helped a friend of ours yesterday?" he asked. The woman's voice caught in her throat, and she nodded slowly. "Yes, that was me." The biker smiled slightly. "He told us about your kindness. We wanted to say thank you." Her surprise was evident, but she relaxed slightly when she saw that his tone was friendly, not intimidating. One by one, other bikers entered the store. They were large, tattooed, and had a rough appearance, but their manners were polite and careful. They spoke softly and smiled genuinely. Some handed her small gifts, coffee, snacks, and handwritten notes expressing gratitude. Others simply stood quietly, offering respectful nods. The woman's nervousness slowly gave way to amazement. She had never imagined that a simple act of paying for someone's gas could lead to this. She realized that they were not there to cause trouble. They were there to honor her generosity. As the day went on, more bikers arrived. By afternoon, the quiet street outside her store was lined with motorcycles, engines humming low. Each new arrival added to the sense of awe and disbelief she felt. She spoke with them one by one, learning more about their lives and their code of respect. She was fascinated to hear how much loyalty and honor mattered to them, and how an unexpected act of kindness could ripple through a tight-knit community. The more she learned, the more she understood the world she had only glimpsed briefly yesterday. Throughout the day, a bond began to form. She laughed at their stories and shared her own experiences running a small business. They asked her questions about her life, her family, and her challenges. Each exchange made the distance between their worlds seem smaller. The woman realized that despite their appearance and lifestyle, these bikers were people with hearts, emotions, and values. They were loyal to each other, but they could also recognize goodness when they saw it in someone outside their circle. By late afternoon, the initial tension had completely disappeared. What began as a moment of fear and uncertainty had transformed into a unique experience of connection and understanding. The bikers explained that they would continue to check in on her and support her in small ways, not as a warning or obligation, but as a gesture of respect and friendship. The woman felt a deep sense of gratitude in return. She never imagined that a single act of kindness could lead to a day like this, filled with respect, laughter, and genuine human connection. As the sun dipped lower, the bikers began to leave. They lined up outside, revving their engines gently as if to signal departure. Each one waved or nodded, leaving her with a mixture of awe and wonder. The quiet street returned, the hum of engines fading into distant echoes. The woman stood at the door for a moment, taking in the empty street, the fading warmth of the day, and the extraordinary events she had just witnessed. She returned inside, her hands still trembling slightly from the intensity of the afternoon. She poured herself a cup of coffee and sat down behind the counter, reflecting on everything that had happened. What she had thought would be a normal day had turned into something unforgettable. Her heart was full, not from fear but from the surprising power of simple human kindness. She realized that helping someone in need, even in the smallest way, could change lives in ways she could never imagine. That night, she went home, exhausted, but with a sense of joy and wonder. She recounted the events in her mind, smiling at the memory of their faces, their laughter, and their unexpected generosity. Outside her window, the last rays of sunlight disappeared, and the city settled into calm silence. The ripple of her kindness continued, quietly strengthening a bond between two very different worlds. The next morning, the woman woke up to a quiet neighborhood, birds chirping softly and the first rays of sunlight spilling through her window. She followed her usual routine, brewing coffee, tidying the kitchen, and preparing for another day at her store. The memory of yesterday's events lingered in her mind, but she told herself it had been just a strange one-time encounter. Life had a way of surprising people, But she believed most surprises were small, fleeting moments. Little did she know, today's surprise would be far bigger than anything she had experienced before. As she stepped outside to lock her door and check the mailbox, the distant rumble of motorcycles reached her ears. At first she thought it might be her imagination, but the sound grew louder and more distinct with every passing second. Curious, she looked down the street and froze. Dozens of motorcycles were approaching, engines roaring in unison, filling the quiet morning with deep, echoing vibrations. The sight was overwhelming. Bikers clad in leather and adorned with patches rode side by side, their movements synchronized and purposeful. It was a sight she had only ever seen in movies or on the news, never in her own quiet neighborhood. Her heart began to race. She stepped back inside, unsure whether to feel fear or confusion. She had heard stories about large groups of bikers, but none had ever suggested that someone like her, a small business owner just trying to live an honest life, would ever come face to face with them. Panic and curiosity mixed inside her. She locked the door behind her and peeked through the window. The bikers were slowing down, forming a line in front of her home, some dismounting and looking around cautiously. Their movements were careful, almost deliberate, as if they were aware of her presence and wanted to approach respectfully. Inside the biker group, the atmosphere was different. The man she had helped yesterday had explained everything to his friends and chapter members. Each biker understood the significance of her gesture, how rare it was for someone to act with genuine kindness without expecting anything in return. They wanted to show their gratitude in a way that matched their values: honor, respect, and loyalty. No one was to be intimidating or threatening. The leader of the group emphasized that this visit was about appreciation, not fear, and everyone nodded in agreement. They approached with care, each biker aware of the fine line between showing respect and overwhelming someone. The woman's phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. It was a regular customer calling with a question about a delivery. She answered quickly, keeping one eye on the window, her heart still pounding.
"Yes, the shipment should arrive this afternoon," she said, trying to sound calm.
She noticed a few bikers glancing toward the house as if they were paying attention, but not intruding. After hanging up, she took a deep breath, telling herself to stay grounded. She had faced tough situations before, running her business and managing the store alone, but nothing compared to the uncertainty of this moment. Then, a knock came at her door. Her hands trembled slightly as she walked toward it. She opened the door to find the man she had helped yesterday standing there with a calm, reassuring smile. Behind him, a few other bikers waited politely, helmets in hand. "Good morning," he said, his voice steady. "We're here to thank you." The words were simple, but their sincerity was palpable. He stepped forward and handed her a small envelope. "This is just a token of our appreciation," he said. She hesitated, then took it, noticing that it was neatly wrapped and looked carefully prepared. As she opened the envelope, she realized it contained a handwritten note and a small gift card for supplies. The note expressed gratitude for her kindness and emphasized how meaningful her gesture had been. Her eyes filled with tears, not from fear, but from the unexpected warmth and humanity in their words. She had never imagined that paying for someone's gas could resonate so deeply with others. The simple act had grown into something much bigger, connecting her to people she would never have met otherwise. More bikers stepped forward, some handing her food, drinks, and other small gifts. One of them explained, "We wanted to make sure you knew how much we appreciate what you did. It's not every day someone shows kindness without judgment." Her nerves slowly faded, replaced by awe and gratitude. She realized that these people, often misunderstood by the outside world, were capable of great respect and thoughtfulness. They were not dangerous in this moment. They were expressing their values in the way they knew best. As the morning passed, she invited them to sit on the steps outside her house. They shared stories about their lives, their experiences on the road, and their values. She listened with fascination, asking questions and laughing at their anecdotes. Despite their intimidating appearance, they were surprisingly human, each with dreams, struggles, and a sense of community she could relate to. She began to see that kindness and respect transcended appearance, background, and social stereotypes. Throughout the conversation, she noticed how organized and disciplined they were. Every movement, every gesture seemed purposeful. Even in their casual interactions, there was an underlying sense of order and respect for each other. They spoke about loyalty, about looking out for one another, and about the importance of acknowledging those who showed genuine kindness. She realized that in their world, trust was earned and respected deeply, making her small gesture stand out even more. By noon, the group had grown slightly, with a few more bikers arriving to show support. The woman continued to engage with them, offering cold drinks and small snacks she had prepared. She asked about their travels, the places they had seen, and their experiences on the road. Each story brought a mix of excitement, danger, and camaraderie. She laughed at their jokes and offered encouragement when they spoke about the challenges they had faced. The bond between her and the group deepened with every passing minute. The man she had helped yesterday stayed close, making sure she felt comfortable and not overwhelmed. He explained that their presence was not meant to scare her, but to honor her actions. "We wanted you to know that your kindness didn't go unnoticed," he said. "It matters to us in ways you might not even realize." She nodded, her heart swelling with emotion. It was a strange, beautiful experience, being recognized and appreciated by a group she never expected to meet in this way. By mid-afternoon, the bikers prepared to leave. They had made their point clear. Respect and gratitude could bridge worlds that seemed distant and separate. One of the older bikers handed her a small card with contact information saying, "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. We've got your back." The words were simple but carried a weight she could feel deep in her chest. She realized that her life had shifted in a subtle but profound way. The world felt larger, more connected, and more capable of unexpected kindness. As the engines roared to life and the bikers rode away, she stood at the door, waving, her mind spinning with everything that had happened. The street was quiet once more, but the memory of their visit lingered, filling her with a sense of wonder and gratitude. She closed the door and leaned against it, reflecting on the surreal experience. What had begun as a small act of paying for someone's gas had turned into a lesson about respect, humanity, and the power of simple kindness. That evening, she shared the story with a neighbor who had stopped by to check on her. The neighbor listened in awe, amazed at how a single moment could ripple outward and touch so many lives. The woman smiled softly, realizing that it wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about genuine connection, empathy, and the understanding that everyone, regardless of appearance or reputation, could make a difference in someone's life. As night fell, she sat by her window, sipping a cup of tea and watching the last rays of sunlight fade. The events of the day replayed in her mind, each detail vivid and memorable. She felt a renewed sense of hope and faith in humanity, understanding that small gestures could lead to extraordinary outcomes. The bikers had come and gone, but their impact remained. A lasting reminder that respect and kindness had the power to unite even the most unlikely people. The morning after the bikers' first visit, the woman woke up with a quiet sense of curiosity. She kept thinking about the previous day, how the bikers had come, the way they had treated her with respect, and how unusual yet comforting it felt to be acknowledged in that way. She had gone about her routine as usual, but there was a subtle change in the air. The neighborhood seemed a little livelier, almost as if it had sensed the extraordinary events of yesterday. She took a deep breath, filled her kettle, and poured herself a cup of tea, letting the warmth seep in while she reflected on what had happened. Meanwhile, the bikers were gathering at their usual spot, a small diner near the outskirts of the city. They spoke quietly among themselves, recounting the visit to her house. Each one agreed that she was someone special, someone who had shown them kindness without hesitation, without judgment, and without asking for anything in return. In their world, actions like these were rare and deserving of recognition. The man she had helped yesterday spoke about her again, emphasizing her calm courage, her gentle heart, and the way she had looked at him as a person rather than a stereotype. His friends nodded in agreement, noting that people like her didn't come around often. By mid-morning, a few of the bikers decided to return to her store, but this time not just to say thanks, they wanted to connect more, to show her that they truly valued her and her kindness. The woman, unaware of this, was busy arranging shelves and helping customers who had come in for coffee and snacks. Her day was ordinary, peaceful, and comfortable. That peace, however, was about to be interrupted in the most extraordinary way. The familiar roar of motorcycles soon echoed through the street. The woman looked up and felt a familiar mix of curiosity and unease. She peered out the window and saw a smaller group of bikers approaching, riding with the same careful coordination as yesterday. They parked neatly along the curb, helmets in hand, and approached her store with quiet purpose. Her heart began to beat faster, not from fear this time, but from anticipation. She had no idea what to expect, but something told her that this was going to be different. The first biker walked inside and greeted her politely. "Good morning," he said, smiling. "We wanted to come back and spend some time with you if that's okay." She blinked, surprised but touched. "Of course," she said softly. "Please have a seat." One by one, the bikers entered, taking care not to overcrowd the store. They placed their helmets on a nearby counter and began chatting quietly among themselves, exchanging polite glances and nods. As they settled in, she offered them coffee and small pastries. She realized that despite their rough exterior, they were careful not to impose, speaking with manners and patience. One of the bikers asked her about her store, her life, and the challenges she faced running a small business. She spoke honestly, telling them about the long hours, the customers who could be difficult at times, and the satisfaction of helping people every day. They listened intently, nodding with understanding and occasionally asking follow-up questions. The conversation soon turned to stories about their lives on the road. She learned that many of them had faced struggles of their own, loss, hard choices, and moments of doubt. They spoke about loyalty, about the bonds they shared with each other, and about the importance of recognizing goodness when it appeared unexpectedly. She was fascinated by how much respect and honor mattered in their world, and how something as simple as her act of paying for gas had earned their attention and gratitude. For hours, they shared stories, laughed, and even joked with her. One biker described a funny incident from a road trip, while another recounted a small but meaningful act of kindness someone had shown him years ago. The woman felt a sense of connection growing, a bond that transcended appearance, lifestyle, and background. She realized that the bikers, despite their intimidating looks, were people with hearts, emotions, and values just like anyone else. The more she listened, the more she understood that human kindness and respect could bridge worlds that seemed impossible to connect. At one point, one of the bikers pulled out a small notebook and showed her sketches of places they had visited, moments they had experienced, and even some graffiti art from the city. She was amazed by the creativity, the attention to detail, and the stories behind each drawing. It became clear that these were not just rough, loud people. They were thoughtful, observant, and deeply aware of the world around them. Their perspective on life fascinated her, and she found herself drawn into their experiences, laughing and reacting as if she had been on the road with them herself. As the afternoon wore on, they talked about gratitude and respect. The man she had helped yesterday explained that in their culture, when someone showed kindness, it was important to acknowledge it fully. It wasn't about reward or repayment. It was about honoring the gesture and letting the person know that it mattered. "You didn't just pay for gas," he said. "You treated me like a person, and that counts for everything in our world." She felt a lump in her throat, realizing that what seemed like a small act to her had a profound impact on others. She shared some of her own life stories in return, the challenges she had faced, the moments of fear, and the instances of unexpected kindness she had received over the years. The bikers listened with genuine interest, asking questions and offering supportive words. It became a dialogue rather than a one-sided exchange, a meeting of hearts and minds. She realized that despite the differences in their worlds, the values of empathy, respect, and loyalty were universal. By late afternoon, the group had settled into a comfortable rhythm. They spoke more freely now, laughing at jokes, teasing each other gently, and even helping her rearrange a few items on the shelves that had gotten messy during the morning rush. The woman marveled at how seamlessly they adapted to her environment without taking over or intimidating her. It was clear that they understood balance, respect, and consideration. One of the older bikers, who had been quiet for most of the day, finally spoke up. "We may look rough," he said, "but we notice the good in people. We honor it when we see it, and we protect it when we can. That's why we came here, to show you that your kindness mattered and that it doesn't go unnoticed." The woman's eyes filled with tears, touched by the sincerity and depth of his words. She realized that they were not there to frighten her or demand anything. They were there to celebrate the connection that had been formed, to express gratitude in a way that made sense in their world. As the sun began to dip lower, casting long shadows across the street, the bikers prepared to leave. Before mounting their motorcycles, they handed her small gifts, packaged coffee, snacks, and a few notes of gratitude written by each member of the group. Each gift was carefully chosen, reflecting thoughtfulness rather than extravagance. She felt a deep sense of humility and appreciation. The simple act of being recognized, of having her kindness valued, filled her heart in ways she had never expected. When they revved their engines and rode away, the street returned to quiet, leaving her standing at the door, soaking in the experience. She realized that this encounter had changed her, not in a dramatic or frightening way, but in a subtle, lasting manner. It had reminded her of the power of small acts of kindness, the importance of empathy, and the way humans could connect across seemingly impossible divides. That evening, she shared the story with her neighbors, who listened with awe and amazement. They marveled at how a single act could ripple outward and touch so many lives. The woman smiled softly, understanding that it wasn't about recognition or reward. It was about the human connection that had been created. She felt a renewed sense of faith in people, realizing that even in unexpected places, kindness could bloom and create bonds that would last far longer than the moment itself. As night settled in, she sat by her window, looking out at the quiet street. The memory of their visit lingered, warm and comforting. She reflected on the laughter, the stories, and the shared moments, feeling grateful for the unexpected friendship that had formed. The bikers had left, but their impact remained, a reminder that respect, empathy, and simple kindness could cross boundaries and connect hearts in ways that words alone could never capture. The morning after the bikers' visit, the woman woke up feeling a strange mix of calm and excitement. The events of the past 2 days played through her mind like a vivid dream, how a small act of kindness had grown into something she could hardly have imagined. She went through her usual routine, brewing coffee, preparing breakfast, and organizing her small store. But something was different now. The world felt a little larger, more connected, as if invisible threads had been woven between her life and people she would never have expected to meet. As she stepped outside to sweep the sidewalk in front of her store, she noticed a few familiar motorcycles parked nearby. Her heart skipped a beat, not from fear but from recognition and curiosity. The bikers were returning, not in a large group this time, but enough to show that the connection they had begun was ongoing. The man she had helped initially smiled at her from across the street, giving a small wave. She returned the gesture, feeling warmth in her chest. She realized that the story of her kindness was no longer confined to one day. It was becoming part of something larger, a quiet ripple of respect that continued to grow. When the bikers approached, they carried small packages and envelopes. They had come not only to show thanks again, but to offer practical support and encouragement for her business. One of the bikers handed her a stack of vouchers for supplies she often needed at the store. Another gave her some tools for repairs around the shop, and yet another offered a handwritten note expressing appreciation. The woman felt a lump in her throat. She had never expected anything like this. Their gestures were not grand or flashy, but they were meaningful, thoughtful, and full of respect. They spent the morning talking again, this time more casually and comfortably. The conversation flowed easily, filled with laughter, shared experiences, and gentle advice. They asked her about her life, her family, and her hopes for the future. She shared her dreams of expanding the store and making it a welcoming space for the neighborhood. They listened attentively, offering encouragement and even practical tips based on their own experiences. Though their lives were vastly different from hers, the connection felt genuine. There was no pretense, no judgment, just simple human understanding and respect. As the day continued, neighbors began to notice the group. At first they were wary, unsure why a group of bikers would be lingering near the store. But as they saw the friendly interactions, the laughter, and the care with which the bikers treated her, their apprehension faded. Some came over to greet her, curious about the unusual visitors. She explained briefly that they were friends showing gratitude for a small act of kindness. The neighbors listened in amazement, realizing that what had begun as an ordinary day had turned into an extraordinary moment of connection. By afternoon, the bikers shared stories from their travels and experiences on the road. They spoke about the places they had seen, the people they had met, and the lessons they had learned along the way. The woman listened with fascination, asking questions and reacting to their tales with surprise and laughter. She discovered that behind the tough exterior were people who valued loyalty, respect, and empathy deeply. Their lives, though different from hers, had many parallels: struggles, joys, moments of doubt, and moments of courage. One of the older bikers spoke about the importance of gratitude. "In our world," he said, "we notice those who show kindness without expecting anything back. That's rare. That's why we came here. Not to reward you, but to honor what you did. It matters to us, and it should matter to you too." The woman felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was not just the words themselves, but the sincerity, the way they looked at her and spoke with honesty that touched her deeply. She realized that her small act of helping someone had created ripples far beyond what she could see. As the sun began to dip lower, casting warm golden light across the street, the bikers helped her organize the store a bit, rearranging some shelves and offering suggestions to make the space more welcoming. She felt a mix of pride and gratitude, realizing that they genuinely cared about her and her small business. The experience had shifted something in her heart, a sense of being seen, appreciated, and connected in a way she had never expected. Before leaving, they presented her with a small symbolic gift, a simple plaque with a message about respect, kindness, and community. It wasn't expensive or elaborate, but it held immense meaning. "Keep this," said the man she had helped, "as a reminder that small acts of kindness have power, and that you've made a real difference in our lives." She held it carefully, feeling tears well up. She realized that life often had ways of showing you the importance of your actions, even when you think they are small or insignificant. As the bikers mounted their motorcycles and prepared to leave, they promised to keep in touch, to check in occasionally, and to continue supporting her if she ever needed help. They didn't want anything in return. They simply wanted her to know that her kindness had made a difference. The woman waved as the engines roared to life, a sound she had grown used to over the past few days. She watched as they disappeared down the street, leaving her standing in the warm glow of the afternoon sun, feeling a sense of peace and connection she had never known before. The next few days were quieter, but the woman noticed a subtle change in her life. Customers seemed to treat her with even more respect. Neighbors stopped by more often, and there was a general sense of goodwill in the air. She realized that her act of kindness had not only affected the bikers, but had also created a ripple effect in her own community. People began to see her as someone who embodied empathy, courage, and generosity. The store, once just a place to buy everyday items, became a symbol of connection and trust in the neighborhood. She reflected on the lessons she had learned over the past few days. Kindness mattered, respect mattered, and even the smallest actions could create ripples that reached far beyond what she could see. She understood that life was not always about grand gestures, but about the consistency of small, thoughtful acts, moments where you notice someone struggle and step in without hesitation. Those moments could change lives, bridge divides, and create connections that lasted far longer than the moment itself. In the evenings, she often sat by her window, looking out at the quiet street and reflecting on the past events. She thought about the bikers, their stories, and the bonds that had formed. She felt grateful not just for their appreciation, but for the reminder that,